were around 400 prisoners. After the evening roll call, it was either in late July or early August in 1941, the Lagerführer announced through his interpreter, by the way of reprisal for the escape of a prisoner, 10 hostages will be picked out and locked in the underground cell without food or drink.
Lagerführer Fritz was the SS officer in charge of the camp at the time. According to prisoners, he greatly enjoyed the cruel and sadistic game of selection.
The selection was a horrifying experience. The Lagerführer himself walked between the lines of prisoners, standing at attention. He'd look one in the eye and wave his hand. Step forward. Everyone was afraid it would be him. We hoped they'd pick only the ailing prisoners, the weak.
Lined up in order by height, with the shortest in front and the tallest in back, the men formed 10 rows.
So when they were counting, they count this way, and the selected prisoner was standing right on the other side, facing us. So that time, when I had my eyes closed, and I was praying, I said, God, please, select anybody, but save my life.
This angel of death, dressed as a Nazi, passed over both Ted Wojtkowski and Adam Jurkiewicz. But Francis Gajowniczek was not as lucky. The Lagerführer stopped, looked directly into his eyes, and uttered the fateful words, "Step forward." His worst nightmare had become reality with a simple wave of the Lagerführer's hand.
And suddenly I heard crying. And the prisoner which was selected, one of this, he started to cry, and he cried, "My wife, oh my God, my wife, my 2 children."
What happened next was a first at Auschwitz, and still amazes these eyewitnesses.
All of a sudden, a prisoner stepped forward from the left wing, from the back line, and started marching toward the Lagerführer. Everyone panicked. What now? We had just been punished for the escape of a prisoner with the selection of hostages. And now he stepped out of the line without being called. An unspeakable crime. He broke the military discipline. We were all standing at attention. No one would dare step out of the line without being told. But the prisoner marched calmly on. The prisoners responsible for the discipline should have reacted right away. The barrack supervisor, the room supervisor, or Lagerkapp. They should have jumped out and turned him back. They should have beaten the prisoner up and gotten the recognition for it from the authorities. But no one reacted, as if nobody believed that this could be happening. And the prisoner made it all the way to the Lagerführer, undisturbed. He stopped in front of him and started talking.
Confronted by such boldness from a frail and weak prisoner, Fritz was visibly unsettled and shouted, "What does this Polish pig want?"
He stepped off and faced the commandant. And he said, "I would like to exchange the father of 2 children. Well, the Fritz stood up, and he was kind of he didn't know what to do. And then he leaned over to him and he said, "You must be, who are you? You must be some kind of a crazy priest." And the Kolbe mentioned, "Yes," he said, "I'm a Catholic priest." So again, he made a step backwards. And he got so nervous. And then he hollered, say, "Umtauschen." That means exchange them.
Kolbe then quietly joined the ranks of the condemned, never knowing the name of the man he had just saved. The still stunned Francis Gajowniczek rejoined the living. The 10 men were immediately escorted to the starvation bunker in the basement level of Block 11, ordered to strip, and then crammed into this small cell. From that point on, they were denied all food and water. Usually it would not be long before demented curses and animal-like howls of the starving, dehydrated men echoed throughout the camp. But with these men, it was different. Bruno Borgoviec, an orderly assigned to the death block, was an eyewitness to the starving prisoners' final days.
From the cells of the condemned men, every day there were heard prayers in a loud voice, the rosary, and the religious hymns in which even the prisoners of the other cells joined. In the moments when the guards were absent, I descended into the subterranean cell to talk with and to console my companions. The ardent prayers and hymns to the Most Holy Virgin resounded through the whole subterranean area. It seemed to me that I was in church. Father Maximilian Kolbe started, and all the others responded.
After almost 2 weeks of starvation and dehydration, only 4 men clung to life. On August 14th, 1941, the eve of the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, the red crown of martyrdom offered to Kolbe 37 years earlier was about to be fixed upon his head at Auschwitz. Needing space for new victims, impatient SS guards entered the starvation bunker and murdered Father Maximilian and the 3 remaining men with a lethal injection of carbolic acid. Father Kolbe's corpse was taken to this oven and burned. Despite his heroic sacrifice, many who witnessed it were already so desensitized by the constant brutality around them that they simply didn't care. It had been so long since the camp's prisoners had seen any act of human kindness that the splendor of what Kolbe did failed to register with some of the prisoners. It was out of the realm of possibilities. However, buried deep inside many of the men was the persistent reality that they had witnessed great sanctity among immeasurable evil. Gradually, the impact of Kolbe's selfless love began to manifest itself in surprising ways. No one was more surprised than Francis Gajowniczek. He later became ill and was placed in the camp's infirmary, where he again was an eyewitness to the power of Kolbe's sacrifice. But this time, that power would be manifested through a camp doctor.
And he told me that the Gestapo came into the infirmary and ordered all of the sick to be removed from their beds and brought to the gas chambers and executed. And the doctor in the infirmary did something beautiful for Mr. Gajowniczek. He placed his living body in a pile of dead corpses, buried Mr. Gajowniczek under these dead corpses, and by so doing saved Mr. Gajowniczek's life. Had Mr. Gajowniczek still been on the bed, he'd have been taken out alive and executed in the gas chamber. And so he continually marveled at how kind the other prisoners and concentration camp workers were to him in helping him to survive what amounted to nearly 4 more years of incarceration. And from that point on, he himself strove to show kindness and charity, humanitarian goodness towards others.
For those who survived Auschwitz, Liberation Day, January 1945, was an experience never imagined. Francis Gajowniczek was among them. Seen here 53 years later in January of 1995, speaking to a crowd in Hyannis, Massachusetts, Francis Gajowniczek told his powerful story of deliverance for the last time. He returned to Poland and died 6 weeks later at the age of 93.